All right. Good morning, Helaine. Good morning.
Good
Appreciate you getting the
morning.
webinar started off here for us.
Yeah, good to be here on this Thursday morning, Blane.
Yeah, absolutely. Super excited to be here for today's edition of Trade of the Day Live. I see folks piling into the room. I'm sure a lot of our regulars are here. Really excited to have you all here live in the room with us while we're breaking things down in today's market action. And Helaine, we'll just hop right into it. I know there's a lot of conversations. They've really been going on for several weeks now. A lot of folks concerned about valuation in this market.
Mhm.
There's so many conversations about, is there a bubble, in the market? Is there a bubble in AI? And almost certainly there's going to be a bubble somewhere out there. There's been a lot, in certain pockets of markets, really unprofitable companies,
Oh
things that don't
yeah,
have a lot of revenues. There's certainly things that are trading, in ways that don't make a whole lot of sense, but that doesn't mean the whole market has a bubble or, that there's anything imminent, there's, imminent sell-off around the corner or anything like that. But, of
exactly.
course, looking at those market valuations, we were talking just before we hopped on, Helene, as of just this morning, the S&P is trading at 23 times forward earnings estimates, which, certainly
Wow.
by all metrics is, pretty pretty expensive and pretty
Yeah,
stretched, just simply looking at valuation. But again, as we, well know for following the markets for a long time, valuation, if that's your only timing tool or trading tool in the markets, has typically been a, pretty poor timing tool, for helping to just, determine trades in the market because, things, they typically get richly valued for a reason. It's because markets are anticipating really significant earnings and revenue growth in the near term future. So, there's typically a reason for that. So, even though we're sitting, market just made new all-time highs, Helene, just yesterday, you can see we just barely eked out by just a couple points in the S&P 500, a new high. Just yesterday's close, we opened just slightly above that today. So we are at these kind of extended valuations, but this market continues to remain resilient and keep powering higher.
yeah, it's pretty impressive, especially thinking back to where we all were mindset wise in April. I would not have bet that we would have seen this strong and consistent of a run off of those lows and that volatility. But yeah, as you said, it just keeps powering forward.
Yeah, no, it's pretty impressive. Like when you put it in that context, thinking back to, truly the lows of April back on April 7th, we were down trading below 4,900 on the S&P, and here we sit. We finally just got a close yesterday above 6,750 on the S&P. I mean, it's just incredible the run that we've had coming off those lows from earlier this year. But that does kind of pivot into my next quick thing before I'll let you take over. Helene, we
Okay.
are seeing a little bit of resistance in the S&P. It's clearly coming in right at that 6750 level. As I just said, we did close above
Mhm.
it just yesterday by just 3 points. So really not that meaningful of a close. It's just barely closed above it. We haven't really, really leaped above that level. And you can see, again, we've had a nice run here in the past, 2 weeks or so, a lot of up days, a lot of nice black bars there on the chart. But, in the past week, we've really kind of seen a compression of that range, even though we've, just kind of eked out several new all-time highs. We have seen a lot of resistance starting to come into the market at that 6750 level. And, we need to, see a continuation of this bull run. We need to get a nice, meaningful close and then get some confirmation above that. And I think, Helene, it's probably a factor, given that earnings season really is going to get started next week. We have a lot of the big
Mhm.
banks up next week. I mean, you name it, JP Morgan, Citi, Morgan Stanley, they're all going to start reporting next week, actually beginning on Tuesday. So, some really big earnings next week. And I think the market's just kind of just tensed up, just to, kind of contracting in that tight range just a little bit, just in anticipation of that. So
Which often
anything else you want to
happens
add here?
before, yeah, that often happens before earnings. If there's nothing else really major going on, we end up in a holding pattern, kind of just waiting for earnings because that ends up being the next thing that the market's waiting to see to act on. So not
Exactly right.
surprising being in that sideways trading right now. But no, I think that that's all, and I think I'm ready to jump into my trades
Yeah, sure
today.
thing. While you're getting it pulled up, I'll just add too that, seeing kind of this range bound trading heading into earnings season, that's kind of my preferred setup anyways. I wouldn't want to see the
Yeah.
market going parabolic into earnings season. We've of course, made several of those new all-time highs recently, but we haven't just, gone, a parabola on the chart, just going,
Mhm.
just taking off like a rocket. We're definitely not seeing that type of trading. So I will say that, that's encouraging heading into next week. We saw some of the financials cool off heading into earnings. So that's kind of my preferred setup heading into that earnings season. But Helene, I know you have a trade here, so go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Blaine. So, I actually moved over two trades. So, the first one is actually an update on a trade that I recommended in Trade of the Day Live. If you guys follow along with our Trade of the Day Live, then you know that oftentimes we're actively taking the trades that we recommend. And then I like to follow up on them, kind of give you guys some insights into our management and how the trade's doing, etc. But I wanted to highlight this trade. I recommended it on August 26th, and it's for BLD. It was a debit spread for October, and it was buying the 380 and selling the 390. So October 26th, let's check out where we were with BLD then. Sorry, August 26th. August 26th, BLD was on a killer trend. Oh my goodness. I was like, look at this breakout. I'm so excited about this. I love it, but I know the builders can be a little finicky. I don't know, sometimes they just sell off after I enter a position. So I decided this time I'm going to do a debit spread on BLD, give myself some downside protection on the spread. And as I said, I did the 380, 390 strike call option spread. So I held this position, things started to sell off. I saw consolidation right around that 385 zone. And so because of that, even though I was seeing a loss in my position, I held on because as I know, during a consolidation, it's either going to break down or break out. And so I was willing to hold it, especially as I started to see signs of higher highs here and higher lows. And so I held the position, the stock recovered, and now I'm on track to still be able to make my full profit potential on the spread, even after the stock completely moved against me. And that is the amazing thing about call option debit spreads, specifically in the money call option debit spreads, and provides us downside protection. So even when a stock is very bullish, we're following the trend, it looks like it's going to take off. We still are given that extra protection and downside protection in case the stock moves against us. So we are still over a week out until option expiration. So my full profit potential is not yet realized, but I have a 13.5% return on my position right now. And given the fact that BLD is basically flat on the month, that's amazing for me. I'll take that any day.
Yeah, I mean, also too, Helaine, it just really goes to show how wise of a trade setup that was. A stock, it was kind of in an earlier breakout, really powered by a lot of interest rate volatility, seeing those rates coming down. But there was, definitely some volatile swings in there, and you saw that set up. Wanted to put that in money call debit spread there, having a little bit of that buffer built into the downside. And you can see exactly why that was such a great idea. This is a perfect example of why these in the money debit spreads can be such, a strategic type of trade setup in the market. I mean, just imagine if you had purchased, just a slightly in the money call with that one.
So
I mean, that
that would
it would have been
hurt.
just a massive loss. You absolutely would have gotten stopped out.
Definitely.
As you said too, if you would have just purchased the stock, also, you may or may not even have a positive return on the stock right now too. But instead, you're sitting on a nice profit with that debit spread, and its own pace. If you were to keep it open, it's still on pace, still well in the money to realize that full potential too.
Exactly, exactly. So I just wanted to highlight that trade, and now I'm going to go into my trade of the day. I'm looking at IonQ, and so if you're not familiar with the stock, it is in one of the hot sectors that people just can't stop talking about right now, which is quantum. There have been a lot of developments in the quantum space, and so this is one of the major stocks and kind of buzzy stocks in that sector is IonQ. So when you
Hmm.
hear people talking about quantum stocks, IonQ is going to be in that conversation. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the chart. Here we have the chart for IonQ. And I do want to note that I am a shareholder. I bought this stock because I saw the breakout earlier in this year. I think I'm up fairly well on the stock itself. I can show you guys that later. But uh, I loved checking out the stock because I saw the resumption of this bull trend and this absolutely insane momentum that we're seeing here for IonQ. So as we can see, it is on a confirmed buy signal. The stock is currently trading above both 35-day EMA as well as the 200-day moving average, with the 35-day EMA trading above the 200-day moving average. This confirms the buy signal for the stock. Now, why I think it's a great time to enter into this position now is after a prolonged consolidation from around May till September, we finally saw the stock break out again, resume that bullish pressure and that momentum higher. And so since then, the stock's really taken off. We've seen a number of new 52-week highs. We're seeing a series of higher highs and higher lows. We're seeing tremendous upward momentum. And so right now, the stock has just pulled back out of being overbought, out of overbought territory, into the Keltner channels, into the buy zone. And not only that, after pulling back, it's starting to trade higher again. So because of that, I want to enter into a call option debit spread for IonQ because this is a volatile stock. Of course, I could buy a call option purchase on this, but the time value alone would be very high, very expensive. So I would rather trade a call option debit spread on this and have some downside protection in case things were to take a pause. So
Yeah, if you
I'm
just look at the
looking.
volatile move in the chart there, it's another really good idea.
Exactly. And yeah, with that volatility, that time value is a great feature for call option debit spread because the more time value in your options, the higher profit potential for your call option debit spread. So another reason why I'd lean that direction, I'm looking about a month out, November 14th, buying the 50 strike call and selling the 55 strike call. As long as I get in below four, I will have more than a 25% profit potential on the position, and this gives me downside protection. My break even is 53.75. And to show you where that is on the chart, that is below that lower Keltner channel, 53.75, all the way down there. So as long as the stock closes above that point at option expiration, I'm set to make money. So let me go ahead and place the trade with you guys right now. And I'm going to do 2 cents above the midpoint. Hopefully that'll ensure I'm filled, but I'll split that and I'll let that stay open today and see if I get filled.
Nice. There you go, Helaine. Yeah. I mean, definitely a bit of a trader stock there with IonQ, a little more speculative play, but definitely one that's been a big winner this year. It's moved a lot. The technicals
Yes.
obviously look really strong, even though there's certainly been some volatility in the stock in several different periods this year. But as you said, it translates to more time value in those options. And, given it's definitely a confirmed uptrend, despite a little bit of volatility, it's a really, really good setup for a debit spread. So, great trade idea there, Helaine.
Thanks, Blaine. And we just had a comment. FW said RGTI or Rigetti is another quantum stock that has tripled since the start of 2025. Oh yeah, I also am
Yes.
a shareholder of Rigetti as well. They've been a great performer for me this
Yeah,
year.
there are several. Yeah, Rigetti, there's IonQ, there's D-Wave, there's
Hmm.
several in this space that have just, they really had a fire lit under them this year. Just been incredible performers. But yeah, Helena, I really like the way to play IonQ in this one right here.
I appreciate
But
it.
I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen now because I have another trade idea here to go ahead and share. I
Sounds
think
good. And Blaine, I have to jump off, but I appreciate being able to be on here with you today live, and I'll let you take it away from here.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. Well, I appreciate you being here, and I know you have to run, so I'll let you get going, but I'll take over, and I'll catch you later.
Sounds good.
Awesome. But pivoting here, everyone, just like when Helene and I were talking several weeks ago, we were kind of laying out our playbook for the rest of the year. We laid out several sectors that we thought, can, still had, really primed to be strong performers throughout the rest of the year. We named tech, we named financials, and then discretionary were some of our top ideas the rest of the year. And you can see right here, tech is continuing to really, really shoulder a lot of the burden for this market. They're still really carrying a lot of the weight, driving a lot of the performance. You can see just yesterday, this is the XLK Tech Sector ETF right here. You can see it actually closed at a new all-time high and closed at that all-time high at the end of the trading yesterday. So still continuing to see really, really strong performance from the tech sector, broadly speaking. Now, of course, just looking at the tech sector ETF here, of course, it's remained above that upper Keltner channel for quite some time. It's certainly in a little bit of overbought territory right now. So my trade idea is not specifically with this sector ETF. It's actually on an individual stock within it. So I'm going to go ahead and pivot over to that one right now. And the specific trade idea for today that I have for you all is for this one right here. Its ticker is ANET. This is Arista Networks. Now, this is a major play in the AI space. They've been one of the big AI winners this year in the market. Of course, you can see they had a pretty significant decline to start the year, along with much of the tech sector when things pulled back. Into March and April, they were selling off along with a lot of their other peers in this pocket of the market. But they've recovered, very clear shaped V-shaped recovery. By really the early part of August, they had broken out to new all-time highs yet again and have continued that run ever since then. They've continued making that nice series of higher highs and higher lows. So the technicals are really lining up quite strongly here. You can see we have a long-term trend line buy signal going. For this one right here for ANET, we have our 21-day EMA trading above our 63-day EMA down here. The trend lines that I always personally like to follow the most myself. So again, you can see when the crossover happened right here in mid-May, and they've continued to keep that bullish relationship ever since, actually widening out quite a bit in the past couple months. So really powerful trading here from Arista Networks. Again, this is a play in the data center. They're enabling, a lot of these, it's what you hear about the NVIDIA GPUs. They have to be able to talk to each other to get the full maximum benefit of AI. So Arista Networks provide some of the networking, switching, different equipment like that within the data center to connect all those GPUs together. So that's why this is such a crucial play in that trade. And again, you can see the stock just yesterday took a massive leap higher, breaking out to that new all-time high close just yesterday. So still seeing really, really strong technical trading. And again, in today's trading, you can see it's still trading within our upper Keltner channel band right there. So the stock is not currently overbought according to these technicals on our chart right here, despite the very, very powerful bullish trend that it's in. So with this one, again, you can see there's been some ups and downs in it, despite the overall uptrend. It does move. It's kind of a higher beta stock. It does move a lot on the charts. So you're expecting some movement out of this one. And again, with that, similar to kind of how Helaine looked at her trade today, she was looking at a call option debit spread. I'm also looking at a call option debit spread with this one too, given some of the volatility in the name, some higher time values, which that translates to higher profit potentials for in the money call option debit spread, just like we're looking at here today. So I landed on this one here, folks. It's the November 21st option. So it's these monthly options I landed on. And specifically these two options here, I was looking to buy to open the 125 strike call and sell to open the 135 strike call. So I'll go ahead and get my order placed here. And, fairly tight bid-ask spread for this actual call spread here. So I have a feeling, I put my order in at 8 points for this 10-point spread. I'll probably be able to get that filled today. So, just got filled pretty quickly right there. Yep, got it filled right at 8 points. So go ahead and take a look at this trade just in our call option spread calculator here, just to show you a little bit further the profit potential and downside protection that's allotted by this trade. So you can see, again, here's our trade plugged into the calculator. And you can see, given it's an in-the-money call option debit spread, in any scenario in which Arista Network shares continue to trade higher, move up higher further from here, and are trading higher come option expiration, you can see the trade to be set up to realize this full profit potential. This is showing at 7.8 points. So let me bump this up just a tad, just to reflect the price I got filled at. It would be the 25% profit potential right here. Again, since it's an in-the-money call spread, if the stock will remain flat, you can see, again, a 25% profit potential in that scenario. And then taking a look at some of these scenarios here in which Arista Networks shares were to fall into option expiration. So you can see even here, all the way down to 10% decline in the Arista Network stock. So even if Arista shares were trading down at $141.26 per share come option expiration, you can see still shown in this chart right here, this spread would be set up to realize a 25% return in that scenario right there. And in fact, since we're looking to sell to open the 135 strike call, that's actually a little bit further in the money than a 10% decline. So this trade actually has a little bit more than 10% downside protection, all while still maintaining that 25% profit potential afforded to you by getting into this trade at this price level of 8 points right here. So that's my trade for today. And just to show you that on the chart, again, here's the 135 strike and here's the 125 strike. So that's kind of the range that we've targeted with our call option debit spread. So as long, again, as Arista stays above that 135 line, so we're kind of drawing that line on our chart right there, as long as it remains above that line, whether it goes up, trades flat and sideways, or even declines just a bit, you can see that trade is, on pace to, set a really nice return come option expiration. So, excuse me. So that's the trade I found for today. It looked like a really, really great one. It's one I've had my eyes on for a couple weeks now. I noticed Arista Networks trend a couple weeks ago, and I was like, man, that stock is really breaking out nicely. It looks like a great chart. I need to mention this one to the folks in TOD Live or get a trade alert out for the members. So really excited I could finally mention this one. They had a good setup today, so I could finally get it out there and get it on your radar too. So I see Greg. Yeah, absolutely. Happy. We're super excited and thankful being here live in the room with us for these TOD live calls. So we're super excited to get to share these trade ideas and kind of what we're researching out there in the markets and opportunities we see. So appreciate you being here. And one quick thing, folks, too, I'm actually going to go ahead and drop a link in the chat too. That if you really like seeing the analysis that Helaine and I do here in TOD Live. I personally have a newsletter product. It's my weekly profit opportunity newsletter. I send it out on the weekends. I do all this research plus some. I dive further into the trades, give some trade management guidelines, profit targets, stop losses, things like that. But I sit down over the weekends. I do a lot of research. I try and find the absolute best looking trade opportunity that I can find in the markets, that's well positioned for the weeks to come ahead of that. So I put it all together in a video newsletter, send it out to my members on Sunday evenings. And the trade's been performing very, very strong. I think it's something right now, like 25 of the last 26 trade recommendations have given my members the opportunity to profit. So, the members who have been following along have had a lot of opportunities to, take some really nice trades if they wanted to take them. So wanted to put that opportunity out there for you. If you haven't checked it out yet, actually, you can kind of kick the tires, test out your first month trial for just $1. So, just $1 to go ahead and try it out, see if you like it. So just put that there in the chat for everybody to check out if you want to go ahead and take a look at it. And I see we have some other questions here too. So see, Greg, you're saying I have a question. Currently have the Circle 120-140 call spread January 27th, but it's only trading around 6.5. So it sounds like with that one, Greg, since that it's probably I'm not sure exactly where Circle's trading at right now. But that's one. It sounds like it's so far in the future out to a January 27 option. There's probably still so much time value baked into that one. Even though it's a 20-point spread, like you said, it's the 120-140. There's probably still so much time value accrued in those options that just has not decayed away since you're looking, very far out in the future in this case. That's probably why it's not trading closer to 20 at this point, even though it's really far in the money. So that's how with these debit spread trades, that's really how they end up profiting is one, remaining in the money. But again, it's a time value decay strategy too. So, that's why when we see an option, that has really high time value, that's appealing to us with our in the money debit spread strategies because, that higher time value translates to higher profit potentials for the trade. But you also have to see that time value decay out of those options while remaining in the money for that profit potential to ultimately become realized whenever the trade is closed out. So in this case, I'm looking with my trade was just about 1 month out, just a little over a month. And still, there's a decent bit of time value in those options, giving me that 25% profit potential. So as we approach option expiration, and if you've ever just looked at a curve showing your average time value decay, the closer you get to option expiration, like every week and every day closer, that rate of time value decay really ramps up. So, if you're 3 weeks out, it's going to be decaying pretty quickly. You get into that second week, it's going to ramp up even further. So it's just accelerating as you get into that final couple days of the option's life before the option expiration. So the closer you get to expiration, you're going to see that time value decay a lot faster. So, in this case with the trade for Arista, again, as long as my trade stays in the money, as we approach November and then get, past the first week of November or closer to that option expiration date, you're going to see that time value start to decay out of the options really, really fast, which is going to start to increase the value of that trade as long as it's in the money still. So just give you a quick idea of just how those end up working out. And Doug, I see, so you said that in your Arista Network strike call setup, do you sell before expiration or do you let it expire to realize the full profit potential? So great question, Doug. So, there are some cases, it's pretty rare where I'll actually hold a call option debit spread all the way through option expiration and allow it to expire. I typically don't like to do that, but you certainly can. The only time I would ever do that is, if a spread, is well in the money, and it's something like earnings, maybe the day of option expiration, that are causing a lot of time value to remain in those options still. It hasn't been able to decay out, how they typically would. Again, that's a pretty rare occurrence, but typically, as long as you see a stock, in this case, take Arista, for example, right here. If we continue to see that trend, unfold, stock continues to break out higher, making those higher highs and higher lows, or even just trade sideways, regardless, as long as our trade stays a pretty good bit in the money as we're approaching option expiration, we're going to see a lot of that time value flow out of those options. And as long as it's pretty well in the money, as you start to approach that date, it's going to most likely have realized most or possibly even all of its possible profit potential. Again, this was a 10-point spread I was looking at today. So, generally when I have a 10-point spread, if it starts getting up to 9.85, 9.9 or higher, at that point in time, the really only, remember, these are, defined reward trades as well. They're defined risk and defined reward. So meaning, up front what your maximum loss is, but you also know what your maximum profit potential is. So, if I have a 10-point spread that's trading at 9.85 or 9.9, I know that I really have zero point 0.1 points or $10 possible profit potential left on the table. But whereas I'm risking 9.9. So, the risk reward in that scenario, I'm probably just going to look to go ahead and close that trade out once they get to that level. So just a little bit of a look into just how I think about these trades. Um, let's see. Let's see. NVIDIA is this week to take some profits on the 185, 190 debit bull call spread. So FW, I think that might have been a trade that Helaine put out there. We might have to follow up with her. I think that might have been an October 17th trade, so I'd have to check up with her to see how she's still managing that one. I don't believe that was one that I had placed. I don't remember that one, or maybe it was one that I had highlighted. And I apologize. After doing a trade twice a week for every week, sorry if I forgot that was one that I had highlighted previously. I think that was one that Helaine had done though. But I think NVIDIA is still, I think that spread's still in the money there. Um, so, yep, yeah, that one. Let's see. I don't know if that was one that Helaine had placed or not. We'll have to check back with her, FW, on Tuesday. I'm sorry that she had to hop off the call early, but can we put a pin in that one and then just check back with her next week on her NVIDIA trade just to see how she's managing that one? Let's see. Holland, yep, you're saying, Holland, yeah, you never like to hold to expiration. Um, Says, do you need to automatically exercise? So typically, Holland, if you hold options through option expiration and they're in the money, then your broker is just going to automatically exercise slash assign those legs of that spread. So, the spread, of course, you have a long and a short leg. So if they're both in the money, then they'll handle the assignment if they were to expire. They're not going to remain open past the expiration date. They just can't. So the broker would have to do the automatic assign slash exercise. And so I would just recommend you just to check with your broker to, check up on their specific options policy. Some handle some, aspects of those things in slightly different ways, but that's typically how that will work out. But folks, that looks like that's just about all the questions I see in the chat there. So I do want to just thank you all so much for being here live in the room for today's TOD Live with myself and Helaine while she was still here. But again, thank you so much for being here live with us. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to be here in this room with us. We're going to be back next week to do some TOD Live with you next week, but we're super excited to get back and break down what's happening. It's, like I said, it's going to be a big week for the market next week. There's pending the government shutdown, we could have a lot of macro data on deck for traders to break down. Plus, we have a lot of earnings coming up. So, whether the data comes in or not, whether the government shutdown gets resolved, that could just be icing on the cake for markets next week. Getting some of that data or not. So we'll see how that unfolds. But regardless, we're going to be getting some big earnings next week. It's in the financial sector, like I said, J.P. Morgan Chase, Citi, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they all are starting to report next week, starting on Tuesday. Some of them are actually, pre-market on Tuesday too. So we'll have a lot to talk about, a lot to break down, a lot of big moves probably going to be happening in the market next week. So we're really looking forward to it. So hope you all have a fantastic weekend and really enjoy it. Enjoy the rest of the week, and I will see you back here next week. Take care, everybody.